Welcome to African Teapot Podcast. My name is Exy.
And my name is Linie. Join us as we journey through Africa's vast variety of culture and heritage.
We explore issues most African families face, both home and abroad. Make sure to like, share, and follow this podcast. Join the conversation on social media and let your voice be heard. Hello listeners, hello guys, and welcome back to episode 2 of our third season of African Teapot. Today's podcast episode is titled The African Woman. And before we get all into that sweet stuff, Linie, how was your week?
Hi African Teapot fam. My week was nicely uneventful, and that's a good thing.
Please elaborate, because I think everyone went, what?
Anywho's, we are heading into the month that is...
Drum rolls.
What is it, Edna?
Women's History Month.
Yay! And Women's Day is March 8th.
So happy Women's Day to all the women out there, especially to our African sisterhoods, right?
Preach.
Mm-hmm. And thank you for participating, and thank you for listening to and supporting our very first episode of 2023. It was a success as we launched it, and we actually also still thank you for this topic today because it was still suggested by you guys.
Ooh.
Yes. So now diving all into that sweet stuff. I think I'm going to start with a disclaimer.
Dun, dun,
So, for the sake of our listeners and the diversity of our listeners, right? Talking about the African woman, we are going to approach this from a heterosexual, how can I put this? From what we Africans growing up, a woman is meant to be. I don't know.
Oh, you mean like strictly like...
biology wise, right?
I got what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
Husband, wife, how at the start you remember growing up and being introduced to the standard African family.
Yes, which is dad being male, mom being female. So that's the African woman concept and perspective we're going to be looking at, right? We're looking at it from that cultural view. So this is no disrespect to, because today we've all learned and we've understood woman means broader than that, right? But we are just sticking to this picture of womanhood and looking at it from that perspective of African cultures, especially, from Cameroon, as we're Cameroonians. So with that disclaimer out of the way, and hopefully I did not offend anybody, but thank you for understanding. If you did, if you didn't, it's okay. DM us. We're here, for the bashing. But getting into this sweet stuff, Linie, when they say African woman, first and foremost, we spoke to 3, I would say, mother figures we had. And one of them, sorry for the noise, one of them actually was our mom. And we had her perspective. But we're going to get into that sweet perspective in a minute. But what do you think, or Linie, when they say African woman, what comes to mind?
A woman who lives by and understands the African values. Our African values go into family, into work, into education, the way we dress, the way we talk, the way we act, the way we are in public. But I feel like I feel like an African woman was groomed to be a nurturer and a carer. So again, don't come at me, but I feel like they were groomed to be married, to marry, to take care of kids, and literally live their life for a family.
Okay, that was heavy. That was heavy. I'm not laughing because I completely agree with you. I have the same views. It's okay. You can sip on the water. That deserves a sip.
I just feel like that's what it was. It's almost like you're growing up and they tell you all these things of how to keep your reputation intact. So someone, when they come to find out where you're from or all these things, you're found to be the pure girl, the right person. When you marry this person, going into the marriage, they tell you all the ways of how not to mess this thing up. They tell you how you're supposed to raise your child and how that reflects on your husband and his family and what they taught you to raise a family.
True.
They don't tell you. It's almost like, what are you?
Yeah. I mean, you can't put it any better. I can't update what you said or correct what you said, because I completely agree. And just to add to what you're saying, I look at it sometimes and because my picture of an African woman now as an adult, I would say I learned it specifically from our mom, our grandmothers, right? Because we had both so grandmothers, mom, and then I would say my aunties. Then when you skip from that, now maybe the women around us growing around the environment, they use that to either emphasize what the right thing as a woman was or what the wrong thing is as a woman, right? So if your neighbor did what wasn't right, and then it was emphasized, that is not right. If your neighbor did what was right, and then it's emphasized, that is right. You get what I'm saying? And when I look at it as well, sometimes I feel sad about the whole situation, because I'm thinking to myself, at what point, like you said, at what point I'm sorry, guys. I'm trying to wait.
Edna is having technical difficulties, yeah.
Okay, there we go. Anyways, so I'm trying to understand, like you said, if Rita is told that her success as a human being is how successful her marriage is how successful her kids are, is how angry her husband is, right? It's how satisfactory her husband is how she doesn't bring shame to her family, then where is Rita? Like, technically, okay, where is Rita in there?
And you know, one thing that when you look in time, and is it The Woman King? That's the new movie that came out, right? When you look back in history, the African woman was to be feared. African women were leaders. They were in politics. They were all of these things. They were healers. Then I would say it's funny when the came with colonization. Nothing personal or against religion. When they came with Christianity and all of these things, the African woman was significantly stripped of her power, of her identity, and she was dropped to basically nothing.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not saying any of these things are wrong, but it's almost like part of our culture was lost through all of this. And if you do study history, part of their ways to colonize and control people is stripping you of your identity.
Oh, yeah. Facts.
And I felt like they stripped a power figure of its identity.
Oh, yeah. Because when you look at the African woman and you look through history as well, it's like you almost have the pre-colonial African woman, right? Then the African woman during colonization, and then the African woman after colonization. So it's almost like there's an evolution of the African woman when you're looking at it. Because before colonizers came in, right, and I say that in quotes, came in, like you rightly said, Linie, there was a lot, women were in a position where they took decisions in their homes, right? They were respected. They were feared. A lot of them, like you're saying, is the women of the Dahomey.
Yeah,
the Dahomey women. That's what you're talking about. Queen Amina and Zinga from Africa. You had a lot of female rulers.
And I don't want to take the part of when I use this word, it can be interpreted many ways. When I say a submissive woman, it's not a woman who doesn't have a voice, who doesn't have a thought process. A submissive woman, when I say that, is someone who gives respect where respect is due and understands her values. I would say the submissive woman had always been there.
Always.
It doesn't matter how much power you have. That is the way it is. It's a submissive
You have to respect your husband.
It's a submissive woman. But I think this word was twisted so far that generations were born with the twisted definition of submission.
True.
And we have lived by it.
So, because when we look at it, or we think, even when we asked, when I asked a couple of, mother figures, it's more like submission was seen as you have to support your husband, right? So that you become like a family that people would respect.
I don't even think
that. No, wait. I mean,
support.
it was no. When I mean support means when this man brings you to his life, you're supporting, because the man had to go look for you.
Okay.
That had always been the case. But
you know what I'm saying? I'm not sure like support, because I believe I should support a man or a husband. You should support, right?
Yeah, no, we are trying to look at the culture pre that time.
I know, but but this is what I'm saying. When you say support, I feel like we're coming from two different definitions, right? And not different definitions. We're saying the same thing, but when you say it like that, it's almost like we're saying there should be no support. The support was not just giving a hand or helping someone grow. The support was you will never and can never be the main idea.
I am talking about support before colonialism came in.
Okay.
Before colonialism, when a woman was supporting, her identity was still there. That's why they were working. That's why they were in council meetings. But the moment the civilization, which was colonialism in pretense, came and they said, well, we are not going to negotiate with women, right? Because Christianity in the Western world had already kind of placed it in such a way that women were not supposed to be in places of power, right? So when they came to Africa, they said, well, I am not. You can go read the story of Queen Amina if you want to. But they literally said, we will not have conversations with a woman. We would only have conversations with men. It's almost to the point where queens were not heard, and their own subjects that were lesser in terms of office, right? That means this guy, colonialist, would literally have conversations with people that did not even have office, rather than speaking to queens or women that were in office. And when that started, and because they came with, we have to westernize people, and they had to do that shift, people now were like, well, there is no need putting women in offices, because, you get what I'm saying? There is no point to it. And gradually there was that shift. And now support became submissive. You understand, which was interpretations of holy books, So now that submission and serving your husband or your husband serving you now became an issue. And a husband serving a woman suddenly became a problem. And then a woman should serve her husband. Meanwhile, before, a woman or man will serve each other and it's not a big deal, right? Before colonialism, we didn't care in Africa who was supporting who. We were just like you, that's what you're saying. We were just supporting. And there was nothing wrong with it. It wasn't just one person's place to support somebody. But that doesn't mean that I don't have roles in my home at the same time. Because moms would still cook, right? But it was not submissive. It was not servitude necessarily. She was willingly doing it, but that shifted from her willingly doing it to it being, this is the definition of womanhood. Like, now you must cook food for your husband and kids. If not, you are not portraying the culture. If not, you are a bad mom. You are a bad wife, right?
Let me also take it to a step further. So we move away from the woman, from colonization and all of this. Then you go over to see the women now. Now, it's weird to say, but there's almost like two camps of African women. And I'm not sure why. It's still the same culture, but I feel like due to all of this, you have an extremist group, like on one side.
Yes.
A woman is like, well, I have a job too, so we both can cook. I'm not saying that's wrong. I support that. But I'm saying when you precondition yourself for a fight, you're going to have a fight.
True.
You can't precondition your mind. I'm like, what do you expect? When you're chopping the onion, he's chopping the tomatoes?
I guess.
Like,
when you do 10 pieces of laundry, he also does 10 pieces of laundry.
The funny thing, our brother the last time said, I get what you're saying, but is it wrong for me to expect you to cook now? And is it wrong for you to expect me to go on the roof and fix it when it's broken?
Yeah. There are expectations on both sides.
It's like, okay, so you are taking that like I'm insulting you and demeaning your role in the kitchen. I can take it as you're insulting me and demeaning my role to be on the roof.
True.
Because,
or fixing your car.
That's
or
what,
paying the bills.
That's what he said. And that is what, to me, I refer to as the extremist group. Now, I'm not saying don't help around, but I'm saying when you live your life by this whole thing being the middle 50-50, and unfortunately, it's due to a variation of reasons. They grew up in a family where they see moms or female figures being treated like nothing. They grow up with this mentality of, I'm not going to be that. Then you find yourself this extremist on the other side who is going against every single
principle.
cultural thing you were given because you don't want to end up like what you saw.
Right. Because if you saw your mom cooking every single day,
regardless of how tired
she was, your dad never helped. You saw your mom, right, going to the farm and working. You like you never saw your mom have a day off. That affects people both ways. Either someone would grow and do exactly that, or someone would go and completely rebel against that. There are two ways, right? And I think suddenly they became like, we'll name the camp. Suddenly it's like, I am a modern slay African woman. And then somebody is a traditional African woman, right?
And I feel like there's a commonality in both of them.
Both.
All these women are trying to say is, I am more than a domestic person. Yeah. I have a lot more. That is all at the baseline they're trying to say. It's the different ways in which we're expressing it, which drives some people to the wall. Why would I have a woman, a girlfriend, I know it's definitely going to be a fight if I ask for anything?
True.
But you expect him, when that tire is flat, to figure it out, right?
Right.
You expect when you call him, you're stuck on the road, he'll come give you a ride, right?
Right.
You expect if the sink is leaking, he should be underneath fixing it, right?
Right.
So how about he says he's not going to do it, you're not going to do it, and y'all both sit and wait for everything to fall apart?
Good questions. These questions is definitely not for me to answer. It's for us to think about. And I have something to add, a drizzle on what you're saying. I feel like there are some values that as a person you should have. And as a person, if you have it, it's a blessing. There is this fight, like you're saying, between the extreme group, like, okay, I'm a modern woman. I mustn't know how to cook. I'm a traditional woman, I should cook. Period. As a person, cooking and being able to live on your own are life skills that you owe yourself. If your parent didn't teach you how to do your laundry, how to cook, how to live on your own, then as a human being, you're already inadequate for adulthood. Because when you have your kids, who's going to feed them? Right? If your mom taught you how to cook, you can't grow up and be like, well, all what my mom taught me was to be in the kitchen. No, that's not it. Cooking is a skill you should be thankful that your parent or your grandmother taught you for free. Because people go to school to learn how to cook. And you learn for free. And we've gotten to the point where women will refuse cooking because it's so traditional and she shouldn't. It means she's not modern. And I'm just like, no, that's a skill, a life skill set that you should have. All women, I don't care if you want to put yourself under traditional, modern, feminist, non-feminist, whatever you want to call yourself or identify as. Even men. Learning to cook means that you have the ability to survive on your own and you have the ability to care for your young ones, your offsprings. Because think about it. So you would have a baby and you can't feed the baby. Like, it doesn't... Those are skills that you should be thankful that you have skills to clean after yourself, clean after your offspring, cook for yourself, cook for your offspring. That is something that as African women, I'm thinking we should be grateful that we have that instilled in us from young. And they do that for free. You don't have to pay for it. Those are things that we need to admire within ourselves. Being able to raise a family, being able to raise your young, to have that support system, that's a blessing. It's not a curse. Now, that is just different from people belittling you about it. So if you're a woman out there and you can cook, fufu, you can, whatever it is you can cook, own it. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. Like, own it. It's something good.
When you see a woman in public say, I don't know how to cook and I'm not trying because I'm not going to be any man's slave. That is a skill you're depriving yourself of. And your own kids. It's like waking up in the morning and saying, I'm not going to work because let's say you're a teacher, I'm not going to work because I'm helping that school make money. You need the money.
The salary.
So, like, we're killing ourselves.
We are. And we are damaging the culture that is... It's amazing that we get to be given these things for free. That saying doesn't mean that things cannot be amended or changed within that culture, which we are going to get into anyways.
Why I say it's sad? Because at a point, these thoughts were even infiltrating my mind. But when I think about it, I'm like, why would I wake up in the morning and not be able to make a pot of fufu? Is that punishing me or punishing, like, who am I doing this for? So when I wake up the next day and I need to cook this, I need to find someone who can cook it, a place I can buy it. It's a skill I have.
Right.
Everything's a skill.
It is a skill that, it's amazing that you had that time that you were taught. So guys, let's embrace those things that make us African and quit being, to complain about it, quit, making it like it's a curse. It's not. It's how people perceive it, right? That being said, when you are also talking about the African woman, there are certain aspects that play to it. Because I feel like patriarchy has a twisted way with dealing with us women. Sometimes we spend the whole time saying we don't want to do things because it's what the man expects. But on the other hand, we are still doing certain things because that's what is going to get the attention of the men. You get what I'm saying? So you can't eat your cake and have it. And this is just to say there has to be a conversation between the genders. There has to be a relationship between the genders. You can't just survive solely by yourself and you will not have a man to support you at some point in your life, be it your dad, brother, sister, friend, somebody. And even you, a woman, if you have children, you have a son, are you going to turn around and hate that son? You are not. So we need to be careful when we are having the gender wars, right? And you're trying to walk away so much from this African image or from this image of an African woman. You need to be very careful about it because you will end up not having an identity yourself. And then you wouldn't have any identity to teach your kids.
Yeah.
And then we see the cycle repeating. Embrace your culture while you can amend things in that culture. And amending it is taking out those things that came and infiltrated the culture in the first place. I mean, look at yourself. You're an amazing human being. And you were raised African, whatever African country you come from. You are X amount of years old. You have these skill sets that people pay for, right? You have this ability to multitask, right? Raise a family. That is a blessing. Now, navigating that so that it's not being taken advantage of is different. That doesn't mean you should refuse people to benefit those things that you have. But that just means you shouldn't let people take advantage of you, right? It doesn't mean don't cook for your husband. No, it means don't move around giving that privilege to just anybody, to people who are disrespecting it. That's what it means. I will cook for a man or a family that appreciates what I'm doing. You get what I'm saying? That's the whole point, right?
Yeah.
Be an African woman to those who appreciate the African woman that you are. Not going somewhere and stripping yourself off, like you said, Linie, just to please yet another man from a patriarchy. So at the end of the day, it's like you're depriving yourself, but you're still feeding into the patriarchy system. If you look at it, you're still kind of feeding in there. But I mean, I love this topic. I don't know. When I saw it, someone suggested, I was like, oh yeah, this totally makes sense. For the month, at least, it totally makes sense. And let me jump into the other part. When we asked the questions to our mother figures, right? And like we said, our mom was one of them. We're like, what are those things that scream the African woman? Like, what are those things that you are supposed as an African woman, even no matter the critique, right? No matter the change, what are those things that immediately, like you do, and immediately when someone wants to change that, you feel they are taking the Africanness from you?
Yep.
What is that? So when we asked, a couple of answers they gave us, I think one of them was morality. Like our African culture preaches, comes from, they teach you from a sense of being a morally upright somebody, right? Don't bring disgrace to the family, right? Follow the 10 Commandments or whatever. We are coming from being Christians, so I would use the Bible a lot. But if it's the Quran or whatever it is, whatever religion that you believe in, but if you were raised there, you realize that even with Muslims, it's the same thing, right? Morality is such a big deal in Africa. Even with someone will say, well, that's the Western man's religion. But if you look at even our indigenous beliefs, right? Whether it was whatever gods we believed in, they still held you to an upright standard, right? Before Christianity and religion came, you still had to do the right thing. And you realize that the right things were still similar to what the colonizers said, right?
Yeah.
Don't kill, don't steal, right? Fornication was, you get what I'm saying? We didn't need the Bible or the Quran to tell us that. Even our traditional rulers and, governance and gods, those ethics, those moral standards were still there within Africa, and that still hasn't changed. I don't necessarily think or believe that it's just Christianity that brought that, right? I think it just emphasized, and that only made us understand the similarities within ways that people govern themselves. But I don't necessarily think in Africa, be you a Christian, Muslim, or none of the above, you are still held to that moral standard, being an African.
Yeah, which is why when I look at some of the things we do or we choose to do, and it's so far off what I think we were brought up to be.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're so respectful and things. And when I see someone falling out of this, I'm like, how?
Yeah, it's quite a shift.
I'm like, how? But again, topic for another time. What's next in the...
Yeah, and the next thing that they all said was clothing. They said the way African women dress has a lot to do with the culture.
It does have a lot to do with the culture, but I completely support that. Someone has to come from the devil's advocate. But then now I find whenever we get dressed, I get you see the stares.
Oh yeah.
Let me say the better description. I'm not sure how to say it, but African moms, aunties, uncles, dads are like, that's what you're wearing, and unfortunately, it's what we wear now, like ripped jeans.
Oh,
I was shocked at the amount of backlash we get for ripped jeans.
Oh yeah. But guess what, guys? It's interesting because have you seen a lot of back in the day attires? Like, go watch the Nigerian movies sometimes and see, like, they would have, like, the lasso, like the loincloth at the bottom, then the loincloth at the bottom.
But,
right?
There was
and their belly is out. Their legs are out. How is that different from some of the stuff that is out there?
I still think the dressing, I get where you're coming from, what you wear. Unfortunately, books are judged by their covers. We can all say, don't judge a book by its cover.
But we judge that.
We keep doing it. Unfortunately, I do. So I get it, but I'm saying, obviously, as time changes, there's some things that have changed as well. I'm not saying, guys, go out there with little pasties and I'm not sure what else you're wearing. I'm not saying that. But we are just
trying to say there should be wiggle room.
But yeah, I feel like there should be wiggle room. I shouldn't have to avoid a gathering because I know regardless of how hard I try, I will fall short.
Yeah, sometimes the standards are just...
Either I'm falling short because I dare to wear makeup. It's either I'm falling short because my hair is colored, or you have a piercing, or you have a tattoo, or because your dress is playing peekaboo. Like, it's something. And again, I like to ask people, if you have a culture that someone feels there's no acceptance in, sometimes that's what unfortunately has driven some of us from it. You feel like you keep trying so hard to fit into this place, and at a certain point you're just like, maybe I'm not that person anymore.
Right. Which was what was also brought up, that education. It's almost like the moment you embrace education, you are fighting your culture. That's something about the African culture sometimes I don't quite get. They want you to go to school, and then when you go to school and come back and say something you learned from school, oh well, now you want to, because you went to school, now you want to tell me what to do.
Since I was born, the way we've been curing this disease is we just rub ash on the forehead. Because maybe now what I said was...
take an aspirin.
Yeah. And maybe that's it. So, personal experience, I feel like I can't be expressive the way I want to because it is seen as going... like, it's almost like it's a gasp. She dare talks.
And she's a woman. Oh my God.
And I'm like, yeah,
and that's because
then it breeds this version of us who we don't care, we will be heard, we shall be loud, and we'll fight for our point.
And then
unfortunately that's what we have to resort to.
And then immediately you're put into the box, well, you're the modern. woman. Now you're not traditional. I'm like, no, I'm just an evolution of an African woman that we've been evolving. And I am just the version that we were stripped of. You understand? Because ways and ways. Are you trying to tell me those women that were in the Dahomey army and Queen Amina and all of that, Zinga and all of them from Africa, are you trying to tell me that some men sat in a room and literally told her what to wear, eat, drink, and when to speak? When you understand, when she was leading a nation, I'm pretty sure she commanded respect. So I'm like, you can command respect as an African woman, and that doesn't mean you are changing who the African woman is. The values, which is what we are saying, morality, clothing, education, childcare, right? All of these things, respecting marriage, even getting married. Most girls, be them Africans or not, want to get married, right? Like, there's nothing wrong. Nobody is saying they don't want to.
What gets me is, why would I come over with a haircut and you're like, this hair, now who marry you?
Like, that's a good one.
Or you appear and they're like, oh, so this job you work 5 days a week, who marry you?
Oh, when will you have time to care for your kids? How about when the kids come, then I'll care for them. Right now, the kids are not there, right? So when I meet the husband, have the kids, then I'm going to adjust it. Like, how about that?
Do they ever ask a man which woman is going to marry you?
I hope they do. And I hope this conversation means we can have. Because let's not get into the boys. We're going to get into that in another episode, guys. So don't feel like this is a bashing thing. No, we're going to it's just you need to have this conversation to mend the gap between boy and girl. Between African boy and girls. We need to have these conversations.
That's why, unfortunately, I don't blame the guys when they're like, marriage far from my mind. Some women are like ready to pounce. They are,
and it's coming.
They are riled up and they're ready.
It's coming from our identity as African women. It's not necessarily how the men are treating us. It's what we were taught, how we look at ourselves, and then now we are hating everything that we were taught. To the point that the gifts we're given, we don't like it. We are rebelling against the very gifts that the culture gave us because we are thinking it's all in connection to make a man powerful. But I'm like, that's to make you powerful. The moment we look at it from that perspective, right? You are powerful, and when you meet a man, you're just combining your power with his. You're just looking for someone to combine your power with, not for someone to take it. The moment we start looking at it that way, men will be like, okay, this is what's up, right? But the thing with us women is that we are rebelling against everything because we believe all of that is all for the man. But I'm like, there's some of it that is for you. It's a gift for you and your family and your kids, especially your kids. It's a gift that you have, even your jobs. Sometimes they'll say, well, African nurses are really good. It's just that nurturing we were taught when we were young. You just nurture your patients better, or you just speak and listen to them. It just comes across different. It's like, oh, she's special. It's just that there are some things that we rebel against. We should embrace it. For me, that's just what I'm talking about, right? Now, taking that and moving on into respecting like patriarchy institutions. Especially, one of them especially was marriages. Someone said this, especially marriages, right? It's like one of the pinnacle when they're talking about women, especially coming from Africa. Immediately you say that everyone goes marriage. Everyone goes kids. You see? And that's why I'm saying we've stripped ourselves of all the other things that we are great at. And now we are zoned in marriage and childbearing.
And let me tell you something.
We're just zoned in there. Like, that's it. If a woman isn't doing these things as an African woman, now you're a modern slave queen and you're veering way off your culture. But I'm like, slave queens still want marriages. And I'm just
why
like...
is slave queen a bad word?
I don't understand.
It's not.
It's not.
That's like a self-care woman. She cares for herself. Why is that a bad thing?
I don't know.
If what you care about is reading, you don't spend your money on what they typically would say a slave queen does, making her look good, that's okay. Some people want a fancy car and someone wants a fancy house. Somebody wants to afford all the vacations, and that's okay. She
just wants to do her nails and have her hair look pretty.
And that's not bad.
She's just evolving as a person over time. Is there any living creature that hasn't evolved over time?
Neither do I feel like the woman who doesn't feel like staying in the salon for 5 hours shouldn't be judged for having a ponytail.
I can't. Because
and
I
not
can't.
the lace front wig. The woman who doesn't want to do the claws because maybe for her the long nails is not convenient for what she does at home
Or her job
job or her lifestyle.
That's still okay.
Do not judge her. If you like the Slay Queen, you like the Slay Queen.
She doesn't want to put lashes. That's okay. What I'm saying is we are bigger. Our identity is bigger than lashes and nails, right? And our identity is an African woman. We should be able to survive and care for the offspring that we are blessed, that we are the only people that can multiply like that. You bring another human being into the world. That is something special. It's not something to be hated on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not something to be frowned upon. And if we don't heal that gap, there's going to be a problem. Because you speak to a lot of African young women out here, I don't want to have kids. I don't want to. A lot of it comes from, I'm not saying there's something wrong with it, but I'm saying if you want to go and look at the reasons why, sometimes it's the culture. The expectation is just, well, I don't want to have kids because I'll be expected to do A, B, C, D, and I know I can't do A, B, C, D, so I don't want to have kids. You know, there's just that fear of failing your family, of people constantly telling you can't do something or you can't do something. And I'm like, that's a problem. But these are things that should be marveled at. Yeah. That we can have babies, we can multiply like this. We are the only species, like gender, like females that can do that, can breastfeed. I'm like, it's like they scrutinize everything you do. And I'm like, no, to the point that we start doing self-hate. Like it's almost like self-sabotage, right? And it's all seen like we are rebelling against this, I know the word, control. Like the culture just wants to control everything sometimes. And we understand, but we are just saying we need to change the narrative. We need to take ownership of the things that we are blessed as African women to have. And there is nothing wrong with you, because before the colonizers came, you have ancestors, maybe coming from your family, that were leading. You had them that they were the ones you had female hunters too. You understand? Most women and mothers were agriculturalists. They were farmers and stuff. So sometimes they're just like, well, your mothers were stay-at-home wives. I'm like, most of our grandparents, great-grandparents, if you figured, even though they put on documents they were stay-at-home mothers, you realize that they were farmers. I'm like, why didn't you put on their great-grandma was a farmer? Why did you say housewife? You see, so it's given this concept like, oh, they were just lazy staying at home. And again, being a housewife and staying at home, there's nothing wrong with it because it's a lot of work still. So it's still nothing wrong. I'm just saying, an African woman, we are a lot of things, not just one. But when we come to look at the patriarchy system, the only way to control a woman is control your sexuality, control finances. When you control finances, you control because we women love attention, right? When you say, well, I'm going to give attention only to this kind of woman, and I'm going to place value only to this kind of woman, that is detrimental to the kind of women you're producing or the society is producing, right? I want just women who do braids. Guess what? In 5 years, all women will be doing braids. You see?
And you know the funny thing, we'll say that's not true.
But it is.
But it is true.
I mean, really think about it. It is true.
Guys, do a press release right now and be like, the most wanted woman is the bald woman.
Everyone will be bald.
Lucky the person who's been slaying that 36-inch hair
will become bald.
Make standards publicly known. And sometimes that's what I'm saying. Make your standards publicly known. Like, hey, this is a no, this is a yes. Okay, I'm not saying
but this is
control people too. Like, there's a line. But I'm like...
But you know capitalism also comes in there, right?
What?
Some people do that so that you can just buy the stuff and do it. Women, we just need to be wise. Have you looked at the makeup trends?
Crazy.
Who says blush is in trend now and blush isn't in trend 5 years from now? They need you to buy it. It's like a capitalist system. The moment they promote something, everybody rushes to buy it. It's a capitalist system. And then it's patriarchy because sometimes the people who own these companies and are saying this, or the people bringing out these standards are the men. So we are kind of working. Well, you know what? I don't want to be the traditional woman because I was subjected. Yeah, and then you just turn around and you're the slave mama and you're putting on the hair just to get an attention of a man. So at the end of the day, the patriarchy is, you get what I'm saying? It's still winning.
All what we're saying is
do you
for you.
Do you. And that doesn't mean you don't want admiration from the opposite gender. That's not what we're saying. But before they admire it, you also like it, right? I love cooking. And then when I met Paul, Paul loves my cooking. Now Paul appreciates you because you cook. That is a great thing. Because you love cooking. But you can't hate it. You have girls who are like hating and bashing on cooking. And then you go to their men's homes, like boyfriends, not even husbands. These girls be whipping up fufu and I chew in them like, you're the same one who said you won't cook for a man, you see? So I'm just like, the patriarchy system, sometimes we are complaining that the men are controlling. We also help to foster this patriarchy system, our mothers included. They keep telling you marriage is going to define you. That is then helping the patriarchy system, because the patriarchy system has put a standard and a value. You get what I'm saying? Your virginity is and I'm not saying people don't go out there be a virgin. We spoke about this last season and people almost came for us.
Why are you trying for us to get bashed again?
Because sexuality is controlled, right? And we are not saying people should move around being immoral. But the fact that you tell someone that you either have sex and you are married, you either don't have sex and you're married, or when you have sex, you are, I don't know, the devil incarnate. I'm just like, okay, those two things it's going to cause crisis. And then when you say that, immediately they get married. Now you have to have sex with your husband whenever he wants it. But at some point, don't have sex with a man because he's just taking advantage of you.
When you give people this identity of their marriages, do you know what it does to a woman? Like when you've told her she is only good and you would know if her life turned out to be a success if she gets married. When she approaches 50, 55, 60 and she's not married. So what she understands is her 50 years of life was nothing, has been a failure, and she messed it all up because she's with no one.
Exactly, and she has no kids. Then sometimes someone will get married. It's like, congratulations. Have you seen social media? And then 4 years. You know one born. Where are your kids?
Yeah.
I'm like, then when you have one kid, just one kid. I'm like, come on, guys. Come on.
And then have 2 kids, but you're 2 girls. Where's the boy?
Where's the boy? Have 2 boys. You need a woman.
You need a woman to balance out the boys.
Come on. Come on, guys. Come on. Hopefully these things help. And then moving on, talking about expectations when you're going into womanhood versus the duty, like the things, the job that you're supposed to do. Being a woman, because being a woman entails work, right?
Yeah.
You can't just lazy around and just be like, well, I'm a woman because I own X and X private parts. No, there's a little bit more to womanhood. And then versus the results, those things you're told to do as Africans, as an African woman. How is that working out for you? So we asked a couple of, our aunties and mothers. And one of the things they said, well, they feel was not really well spoken. Like some of the things that they feel needs more conversation, or things they weren't really informed about. They weren't really informed.
Or were inaccurately informed.
Yeah,
about.
they were misinformed. That's the word. Yeah.
Oh, I just remember the story we were told once we were asking questions. Because we were like, what was sexual education like? Because in the African community, it's still lacking. And we were told, well, I was told that, how to say it now, candy, which we call sweets, bonbon, chewing gum,
chocolate,
all of these things is what makes you pregnant. I was like,
what?
And they're like,
that was alarming.
And then what they told us was, do you know where you get all these things and the chocolates and stuff? I was like, what did they say? From boys. So hence, one of them told us that's why till this day she finds herself unable to eat candy, chocolate, and that stuff, because that is mental torture. People just rather tell your kid the truth. No, you look for all these cunning ways to get them to her. Now a 60-year-old man can't eat chocolate, and it's not like she doesn't know now what you were trying to say and what you manipulated. But unfortunately,
she's knowing it too late.
It's been ingrained in there that you don't realize it, that a certain part of you.
It's affected. It's still broken. Guys, come on. Have this talk with your kids.
Like, I just had to cut in there. I was amazed. That's a story I have to listen to. That chocolate makes you pregnant. Because you didn't want to tell your daughter how pregnancy comes about. So you look for a cunning
Then one
way to get it out.
said they said it was meat and fish.
Yeah, that gets you pregnant.
And beer. Like,
And the one, if someone eats more than one egg, you're a thief and will be a bad wife because they don't know how to manage money.
yeah. Guys, outrageous.
Guys, I remember growing up and actually when I was growing up, this was still a thing. I remember we went out once, we were hungry and we were still out, and so they came up to my younger sister and myself. That's Larry, who is not on this episode, but they came up to us and they're like, what do you want to eat? Innocent kids. There was a lady passing with eggs, hawking eggs, and we said, eggs. Yo, we were screamed at. What? Eggs? Who trained you to ask for eggs? That's very bad. If someone asks you, never say eggs. Do you know it took me years and my mom later explaining to me like it's okay to eat
eggs?
A whole egg. I had to be told it's okay to eat a whole egg. And unfortunately, and that is sad, but do you know till now, there's low-key guilt every time I
You're eating an egg.
Eat, like, that is like till this day I know what I know. I'm able to afford 3 dozen eggs. And I still feel like I can't use bad words. I still feel like I'm a bad person.
My head hurts.
When I eat more than 1 egg. I'm saying it with so much pain because
But
I'm
think
hurt.
about it.
I hate this is a feeling I have to live with.
Think about it, Linie. That's a whole chicken. You're eating.
Listen, tell this sister of mine to leave me alone.
Think about it, guys. An egg is a whole chicken.
And do it like things like that.
Oh, world.
Or I remember my dad sent me money and I was interviewed. I'm like, okay, of the money, how much did you spend today? I was like 500. I received a whole talk. Do you guys know the money ended up getting lost? I didn't even spend it because I was scarred. I felt like if I ate more money, it means I would never be a married woman in my life.
Lost the...
Guys! She's laughing, but I was a scarred child. And I don't like to say in a first meeting that because Edna knows I have a tendency to shop and stuff. So I feel like for the most part I've overcome that, but I still find myself, even when I have the money, I have to talk myself into spending my money, the money I'm working hard for. That's wrong. But sorry, what were we on?
No, that's a good one. No, it was still within the lines and scope. Expectation versus duty versus the results. Because when we asked, one was marriage was seen as the end goal, right? That was one thing that was brought up. Like the expectation is you should be married. Your duty was stay in there. We don't care what happens. It's for better for worse. No leaving. I guess that's why probably back in our African homes, back in Africa anyways, you don't hear about the divorce as frequently as you hear. Yeah. And then the results, now we heard, was where it was interesting. They were like, at the end, people stayed through, obviously, violent unions, right? And marriages.
Story. I seem to be a lyricist today. I'll be coming up with these stories. I met my friend and her grandma had passed. So, I go over to her. I'm consoling her and stuff. And what she says is, it's sad because in all the time she knew her grandma, she was abused by her grandpa. The whole family knew it. Everyone knew it. But her mom died with like multiple broken bones over the years. And she herself said, as she was a granddaughter and being here, she knew how wrong that was, but she couldn't say anything. And like, how sad is that a whole generation of children know that there was someone who was an abuser, someone who was abused, but you have to take it because they'll say that is culture, but she stayed in her marriage. That was a good woman. That woman's entire life was with broken bones.
And then guess what? What about what your kids have learned from that? Like, really, like, it's sad. And sometimes, guys, the people perpetrating the beating, sometimes they themselves are victims. Better. They are victims. They are sick.
They were told if you have a wife, you come home and she hasn't.
Yeah, they need help.
Beat her up.
That's one thing about the culture. What we do is that we just castigate some of these men sometimes. That's what I'm saying. We need like a complete restructuring.
They are victims.
Victims of these teachings that people tell us half-truths. They make you hate the very things that you should be happy and grateful that you have. Then they make you embrace things that are wrong just because you're spending your whole life running away from something that was bad, or something that you were misinformed of.
Yeah.
You know, like chocolate and eating a whole chicken in form of an egg.
Edna.
So, that was one. I know that laugh sounded evil. Like the little laugh I just had now sounded like something should be in a horror movie.
So you want to say you don't have any stories of things they told you not to do that as an adult right now? You're like,
as an adult, maybe from our mom directly, not really much from our mom directly. Did our mom ever tell us something that was outrageous or something? Well, my uncles, when we were young, I remember when mom was pregnant with Elmi. I remember still being, no, she was pregnant with you still or something. And I was wondering, I was like, why is mommy's tummy? That's something else that even my own parents didn't do. Like discussing with the other kids that they are expecting another child.
They'll just show you a whole new
they just show us another. So my mom and dad never said, well,
we're pregnant.
Another. For Elmi, I knew because I wanted a playmate so bad. So they told me another playmate was coming, but they never told me how. They just told me another playmate.
I mean, I understand if you're dealing with a 4-year-old, be like, hey.
Yeah, I was pretty young too, so it makes sense. But with you, I wasn't stupid. I mean, at 8 years old, I'm not dumb. But I was like, I remember our aunt, that's my mom's, she's now here. If she hears it, she's going to crack up. But she was in the house. She was in secondary school at the time. And Elmi and I were young. And she came with sanitary pads, right? Mm-hmm. So I saw her removing sanitary pads from a packet. And I asked her, what is that? I mean, you should have just told me about menstruation and flow and all of that. You know what they said? There were two of them. Auntie Mirabelle and Auntie Immaculate. They said it's Chinese bread.
Oh my God. Don't tell me you
whole time.
Don't tell me you tried to eat it.
I went and took one and I thought it was bread.
Oh my God. Lord.
And it was sanitary pad.
Oh God.
Just because they didn't want to have the conversation of menstruation, because obviously you're going to talk about pregnancy. Right? And they didn't tell my mom, well, guess what? She's about 9, 10, and she's beginning to have questions about... No, they didn't say anything.
You know some people have periods at 9?
Like, they didn't. And later on, when I was like...
Did it digest properly?
No, I bit it, obviously. I felt like, well, this feels like cotton. There's no taste to this. I didn't say anything. I just kind of snuck out of there. But in my head, I was like, this is not right. And then I went and told Elmi, like, yeah, that's not bread. Because it was Elmi, and I told him, like, yeah, that's no Chinese bread. But that's one of the stories. There are a couple of them, now that I'm thinking about it. And they never really engineered or initiated.
Oh, really? You're talking about evil people.
We're just talking about
things that... You understand what I'm saying, evil people. You remember when you and your brother told myself and Lyris that the plant that looks like cotton is what transmits HIV? That was a time in Cameroon where it was like, they were really doing big education about HIV. We were finding out about it and people could die from it. Lyris and I one afternoon, right? It was maybe here I was still like springtime and wind has carried this thing around. Lyris and I ran for like a long time to the point where we were out of breath. But
we were kids. I was not an adult telling you.
What?
I was a kid.
You were in your teenagehood. To me, you were an adult. They told
I mean, if you're 12 telling somebody something.
Can I finish my story?
It's what kids say.
Can I finish my story? So Lyris and I ran around, and the thing finally touched us. We cried. We're like, someone's going to die. Yo, do you know how painful that was? Me trying to run away from Poland. How is that possible?
Oh my
I
world.
just want to say, Edna owes me. I'm a traumatized child.
Okay, this is what I'm going to say, guys. I mean, a 12-year-old telling an 8-year-old how they transmit HIV, and then the other person was what? Like 10 or 9? I mean, kids say weird. Like, didn't you tell Lyris, like, she was adopted? I
don't remember saying such a thing.
But Lenny, what I'm saying is that kids say different. I mean, like, coming from adulthood. Let's get back to the conversation. Please. Okay. Back to what is... guys, so the ones about pads, obviously they should have told me. That was womanhood right there. And I think like 3 years from there I started having my period, so they should have told me about it. They didn't. When I asked about what was growing in mommy's tummy, My uncles, again, I don't know why I asked them, told me she ate rice and is going to, and because she prayed to God, and once another kid, God is going to turn the rice in her tummy into a baby.
Oh, God.
That's what I was told by Uncle Everestus and Uncle Ferdinand. The two of them, that's what they told me. But this is just to say we don't have these conversations, and we should have conversations, because when kids ask you questions, it helps. It saves a world of people chewing on cotton, people avoiding eggs when they are older, people running from pollen. But that was not said by an adult. I say it was said by another kid.
Oh,
but anyways,
wow.
all of these crazy things, it would help if we just have conversations. That's what it was. And then one of the topics, let's get into the topic. One of the things they said expectation-wise was children, they tell you like your kids need to grow, go to school, make money, be successful for you to be a successful parent. Until now, we see it being expressed in our communities. Parents will brag about their kids being doctors or this or that.
Oh, you mean the 3 acceptable
jobs? Doctor, lawyer, engineer.
That's it.
That's it. Then when you want to be very adventurous, you can be a pilot. And then when you're a journalist, that now is one of them that slicks in there like, oh, she's on TV. You know, but not an actress though. Because the movies you're acting love scenes. So yeah.
And all of these expectations they give, it's hard to live up to it. Some people are lucky enough and their life flows exactly like they wanted, exactly like their thought. But for some people, it doesn't. And you live with this feeling of, where did you mess up? Where did you fall short? At which point should you have taken a different turn?
You said that and I just thought, do you know how completely unrealistic it is to tell a woman that her entire life, her success is how a child becomes like how is her 40-year-old son still her fault if he's chosen to break the law or something?
Or a 40-year-old who gets a divorce, that means the mom and the dad didn't train him well? No.
Or a 40-year-old that you find prostituting due to circumstances is her mom didn't bring her up properly. I'm like, how does that fall back to be the fault of the woman?
It's hunger. That right there is hunger.
How about the corruption? You know, so sometimes I'm like, you just said that and I thought the African woman goes through a lot. Because you may have 4 kids and you just have 1 kid that the gene just, I don't know, acted different on that kid. The gods were just not present and that kid is just, or it's a kid that is way more troubled than the others, right? Just needs way more time and attention. How does that become the fault of the mother? We always see that in Nigerian movies. Talk to your son. Talk to your daughter the moment a child needs correction. So we African women, when they spoke about childbearing, that was one of them. They spoke about fidelity in marriages. A woman is not forgiven for cheating on her man. Sometimes even when they're raped, there were cases that a woman was raped and the marriage ends because the man can't be with a woman that has been with another man while in the marriage. And I'm like, even in instances of rape, and you wonder why women hide these rape cases. It happens, guys. This was one of the funniest one we heard. Some women don't leave marriages because the dowries were so high that if that's one of the stories we also heard.
If you dare to leave, who will pay back?
Who's going to pay back the dowry?
When you came back to your dad's house with this list of problems, even being abused on like a man takes you, he isn't feeding you, he isn't taking care of you, anything, their father will ask, do you come back with the dowry? Can I ask a question? Who ate the dowry? You or me?
The parent.
And you know what our mom told us? Once you got married and you were living there, like, I don't say it in pidgin because maybe people understand pidgin. Like, as you are going for this marriage, make sure it succeeds because we're not going to return this dowry. Now you understand why someone would live her entire life with broken bones and not go back.
And then guess what? The men are the ones, patriarchy again, the men are the ones who set the price for the dowry for like, say, $1 million. And now this woman is being battered there and can't come back because she knows those same uncles that received the $1 million for the dowry don't have $1 million to give back. That's just ridiculous.
I believe if you batter me, that $1 million you see my African accent. In fact, I believe if you bid me up.
Okay, Linie, shut.
In fact, I believe if you bid me up, that $1 million should cover. It's mental damage and mental torture. Like, what money are you asking for?
Sometimes this culture is crazy. Last but not least, one of the last things that they mentioned as being a problem where nobody tells you when you're growing up or they're telling you marriage is the end goal. nobody tells you about extended family members interfering in your marriage, right? Sometimes extended family members do interfere in the finances of your home. They come for conflict resolution, but they are technically not really solving the conflict. They are taking the side of their own kids. And then sometimes they want to tell you how to discipline your own children in your home. I think that was one of the issues that came up at the very end that Linie and I, we spent a lot of time talking about, like just having people leave their families, get to your own house and try to run it simply because you are married to their son, right? And then when your own mother they were marrying you off, they never educated you how it is to be in a marriage and also entertain your in-laws. Because in our culture, your in-laws are part of marriage, right? You don't marry by yourself. No, like we do in the Western world.
Like, that is what they say. Like, you marry a woman, you marry her family. Like, when someone marries the firstborn of a family and you're a large family, I'm sure you're ready to feed the...
Exactly.
Unfortunately.
Too much pressure.
I feel like it's another conversation where we have to have an episode where we talk about, like, marrying a family. Do you feel... Oh, let me just pose a question now. It's not what we're talking about. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like if you marry a woman or a guy, you owe something, a certain level of, maybe, let's say, respect or something to the rest of the family? Like, do you feel like you're just marrying that person? Even though they say when you marry a person, your family tends to be that person and you guys build. What about the other people? Yeah. And I feel like that also affects, maybe it's related, that also affects an African woman. You have people from different cultures. An African woman is a whole lot. You have people marrying who come from other cultures. So even some of the African men who want to marry a woman but keep her apart from the family. We have a strong grounding in family, and I don't understand why being married to you here means if my sister is sick in another state that I can drive to, I should let my sister struggle.
That's a controlling thing. And I think it's blending the cultures, where in the Western culture, it's just you and whoever you're dating or being with. Extended family members have no priority, right? But in the African culture, you extend to your family. And then sometimes that aspect, again, for African women, extending and caring for families is something to be admired. Yeah. And sometimes these men come to you because they admire that. But at the end of the day, they are complaining that you're thinking about your family. But I'm like, that's exactly why you married me, because I'm family orientated. You know, like, so it's a vast conversation, but we don't want to drag this episode too long. And one question that I'm going to leave you guys pondering, and probably will continue on social media, is, are we prepared for womanhood? Are you prepared? Womanhood encompasses everything we've touched in this podcast episode. Are you ready? And per the 3 amazing women that we spoke to, with our mom inclusive, the answer for them was, some things need to change. And when they said some, they said majority is the some that need to change. Yeah. So what is it for you, right? Let's take this conversation back up on social media. Right, Linie?
Yeah.
Any roundups?
Thank you for sticking with us, to listening to me through my variations of my accents.
Going off topic.
Through the times where I started screaming because I was hurt.
She is.
As I always say, make someone feel loved, reach out, and that friend, that person you forgot about, if you're thinking of them, there's a reason. So share love and kindness.
Yes, guys. And again, enjoy your Women's Month and happy Women's Day. Thank you for listening, and hope you join me for the next episode. You can always reach us via email at africanteapot@gmail.com and follow us on Instagram at African_teapot.